As news of the outbreak of COVID-19 came onto our screens, what was your automatic, your instinctive professional reaction? What was your response and what approach did you take?
Well, you mentioned at the beginning, you said, we've all been waking up. And when that announcement of COVID as a pandemic, when it was announced, I sort of had this moment. This does not feel right. It does not make sense. So it was literally then. And then I watched with great concern to see how, to see the strategy that governments and the World Health Organization then rolled out in response. And I didn't have a voice at all. I was working in with the Department of Reproductive Health and Research at the WHO as an external consultant, and doing my other work, which was related to brain tumors. So I was doing this suite of systematic reviews related to brain tumors, treatment and diagnosis. So I wasn't anywhere. I didn't have anything to do with COVID, and I had no opportunity to give my opinion. And so, I watched and waited for common sense to prevail, and instead I saw quite the opposite, with lockdowns and masks and many other things that didn't make sense.
You're saying that you're describing noticing something very early on. Myself, as a non-scientist, non-medic, I was just watching news coverage coming out of China, then coming out of Italy, and just honestly didn't know what to make of it. And I don't remember in any sense feeling able or qualified to assess what I was watching. What was it through your trained eyes that struck you early on as being out of step or lacking common sense, as you say?
Well, coronaviruses have always been around, There have always been viruses. There was nothing that indicated that this was a pandemic or international health emergency, in my opinion. And, I'd actually had a conversation with a colleague around about that time, just saying, at the World Health Organization, just saying, it just doesn't feel like we're making a difference. I've gotten into the business of evidence synthesis and my work with WHO to make a difference. And it just felt like we were just putting Band-Aids on. There was nothing really that, we were doing to promote health in any substantial way. So I was already feeling, I guess, disillusioned with the system of global health policy making. And then when I saw the lack of evidence and the swiftness and the unilateralness and the lack of dialogue with independent scientists and experts who were saying different things and how they were being dismissed, I thought there's something really unsavory here.
Now, I know that very early on you were looking at existing medicine, old medicines, other drugs that were already in existence. Is that a normal approach to the emergence of a worldwide medical problem? I don't know, with HIV/AIDS maybe. Is the existing array of medicines checked to see if any of it can be applied as a weapon in the new war?
Yeah. Of course, that would be the most obvious approach, wouldn't it? You look in your toolbox to see what you've got that can fix the problem. And in countries where, with small budgets and low resourced, they were immediately doing that. Look at what doctors in Bangladesh were doing, and countries in South America and India. They immediately looked in the bag and said, okay, we've got ivermectin, we've got vitamin D, C, we've got doxycycline, let's try these things. And in actual fact, they started reporting that ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine were working. And then it seemed like certainly with hydroxychloroquine, some sort of influence got involved, and under the auspices of conducting randomized clinical trials, well conducted trials, a bunch of fraudulent studies were produced that that suggested that hydroxychloroquine was dangerous. Now, this is a drug that's been used, an old established medicine has been used for decades, and it's very, very safe. Not at the doses that these studies that came out of Oxford were using, but at lower doses and early on in the disease before there's kidney damage. So that was very concerning, and I could just sit on the sideline and I was just watching, aghast. So it wasn't really early on that I got involved, but I did get involved when I saw the testimony of Dr. Pierre Corey in the States, speaking before the US Senate and basically begging these judges and politicians and whatnot to allow him to prescribe ivermectin. Now, I mean, that's just ludicrous because ivermectin is an over-the-counter medicine in many countries. It's the thing with old medicines or established medicines, you don't have to worry about the safety like you do with new medicines. Mm-hmm. So, the dialogue that then came forth from the health agencies that, and in fact, Merck, the pharmaceutical company that originally held the patent but didn't any longer and was now producing and testing experimental new drugs, was that we don't know whether it's safe. Now, even our chief scientific or chief medical officer, Chris Whitty, he was involved in malaria studies in 10 years ago, and he has a paper where he says, ivermectin is safe even at 10 times the normal dose. So, this was widely known that ivermectin was a very safe medicine, and yet the authorities were pushing back and saying, oh no, don't go near it. So I looked at the evidence and I did my usual sort of evaluation, albeit rapidly, and it was clear that this would be a game changer, and especially when used early on to treat COVID along with other supplements. The things that usually your doctor would recommend: take some vitamin C and D, and get some sunshine. And none of those things were being recommended. And so this was early January 2021. And so I put together a strong team of systematic reviewers, and I thought, well, this will be irrefutable if we all look at it and reach the same conclusion, which is not recommending it. It's just saying this would be a game changer and is worth looking at, is worth trying because there's nothing to lose. That was basically the finding of the review. And we were completely ignored